Being a real estate agent is difficult, and I think being a part-time real estate agent is probably even more difficult. So this video, we're talking how to be successful as a part-time real estate agent. How's it going, y'all? My name is Jesse Lynch. I run multiple real estate teams around the United States. And on this channel, frankly, I'm interested in helping people who want to do real estate a little bit differently, want to do it their own way. So if that's you, come hang out for a while, subscribe to this channel, click the bell to get notified so you can see when we're putting these videos out. If that's not you, if you want to do things the old way, the old-fashioned way, then keep it moving. Channel probably not for you. If you have any interest in working with me on sort of any level, go to my website, jesselynch.co. There's a bunch of information on there in sort of the different routes that could be taken to work with me, if that is at all something that you're interested in. And so in this video, we're talking advice for part-time real estate agents. And I think a lot of this will be probably, we're talking to people who are not yet real estate agents, but are thinking about becoming real estate agents, but they know that they would start out part-time because they need money, which, by the way, very soon, if not right before this, I'm gonna have a video out called basically, should you be a part-time agent? When should you quit your job? That whole idea. So if that interests you, just make sure you check out that video one way or another. So the first question that I want to answer is, should you even try to be a part-time agent? I think that's a very common sentiment that with people that I've talked to who have joined my team as brand new agents who have a job and they're like, can I do this part-time? Can this be pulled off? And I would say that absolutely, yes, you can pull it off, but you have to make sure that your expectations are set correctly. And I don't mean expectations to not make much. I mean expectations to do a lot of work. I've said things like this a lot of times already on this channel. I'm going to continue to say it, but the hardest part about being a real estate agent is not the job of being a real estate agent. It's getting people, finding people who want you to do your job as a real estate agent for them. There's a lot of words for that: lead generation, prospecting, whatever you want to call it. I basically just think of it as you got to find a client first. So I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give to a part-time agent is that you basically have to put in full-time work as a part-time job. So I believe that you have to fundamentally put in about as much work as you're doing in your full-time job as you do in this part-time job. But I think a lot of what people are trying to get at when they ask, can I be a part-time agent, is what they really mean is, can I have a full-time job as well? And yes, I believe you can have a full-time job. You can work 40 hours, 50 hours a week at another job, but that doesn't mean that real estate can be a 10 to 20 hour a week job. I suppose it probably technically can, but in my opinion, if the goal is to work out of it being a part-time job, which I think for a lot of people it is, then you have to treat it like a full-time job in addition to your other full-time job. And so I realize that burnout can happen. I realize that that's not a popular opinion. People talk a lot about work-life balance and all that. I think that work-life balance is whatever works for you, whatever you feel happy, content doing. And a lot of the time, there are seasons to work-life balance. And in my opinion, as a part-time agent, when you get into real estate, that season is not going to look particularly balanced from the outside. One last thought on work-life balance. The idea that work-life balance is like as much time in life as in work, and that's how a balance is created, I think that's absurd. I don't think that's accurate. I think there are a ton of people who really love what they're doing, who spend more time at work than they do in regular life. And I think there are some jobs that suck so bad that you need to have more time away from them than at them, because they are a nightmare of a job. So I believe as a part-time real estate agent with another full-time job, this has to be basically 2 full-time jobs, and your work-life balance is going to look a little bit weird, but the goal should be, in my opinion, to get out of this job and get all the way into real estate. And I have a lot of videos on this channel where I talk about why more real estate, why allotting more time to do real estate rather than other side jobs is so valuable. But at the end of the day, to me, it's all about how leverageable real estate is. And so now you have a full-time job over here doing your old thing, and also a full-time job doing real estate. Basically, you're gonna wanna make sure that this job can accommodate the ability to have another full-time job as much as possible. And so the old job needs to be extremely consistent, very reliable hours, and probably not too draining, or you just have to be so excited about real estate that it sort of like ignites you, lights a fire within you that you don't care how draining this is. This is draining, but all you're doing is thinking about real estate. I think that's actually, as much as that sucks, that this job sucks, that's a good thing. So either super reliable or it needs to be extremely, extremely flexible. You have to have like the chillest people running your schedule who are like, sure, you can go do that when you were supposed to be at work or anything like that. But I believe that you can work around either very, very consistent or very, very flexible other job, again, as long as you have certain hours available for real estate. And I would say, make sure, try to focus very hard on having nights and weekends available for real estate. The reality is most real estate showings and even meetings with seller clients and things like that occur after 4 or 5 p.m. and also a ton of that occurs on the weekends. Because the reality is most of your clients, both buyer and seller clients, will also have jobs that they have to go to. So to recap that, the goal for the other job, the old job, the soon to be previous job has to be very, very consistent and or extremely flexible. And I would say make a big priority of having availability on the nights and weekends. And then while this is either rigid or very flexible, you need to make sure that you can create some sort of a schedule to designate to the real estate job. And what an either very consistent or very flexible schedule at your previous job, your old job, your current whatever job, basically what that's going to allow you to do is to be somewhat rigid, somewhat structured on the real estate side of things, and it can allow you to predict when you will be available. I do real estate full time, but I have multiple clients at any given time. And so what happens is I'm not available 24 hours a day for any individual client. And people expect that. People do not expect you to be available 100% of the time. Even if they think that you're a full-time agent and this is all you're doing, still, all you're doing, there still are other people that you are helping, other buyers and sellers that you're helping. So nobody expects you to be available all of the time, but if you can set up appointments for the days that you are off of the previous job or the hours that you're off of the previous job, nobody will necessarily have to know that you're working this other job. You just happen to be available on the evenings and on the weekends, which coincidentally is when most other real estate activities are happening. And one little hack, I really want to lean in on this because it's super important. You have to try to get ahead of your clients when it comes to scheduling showings in the future. Even if you're a full-time agent, it's something that you kind of have to learn the hard way, but I'd like to kind of give you a little bit of a hack. You have to try to carve out time in the day and not suggest, oh, let's do this showing in, very far away in the worst time frame imaginable. If you have a client who wants to see a house that's an hour from where most of your activities occur, you want to make sure that they are either bookended on either side of the day. There's something very frustrating about basically having a 3-hour window blocked out of a day where time is super, super valuable, right? Because you have to drive for an hour, do an hour showing, and then drive another hour back to get to where you're doing the rest of your business. But you can basically save at least an hour or so if you bookend that. It might mean that you have to wake up an hour earlier. It might mean that you have to stay out a little bit later, but don't sabotage your own schedule by putting something super inconveniently out of the way, just like right in the middle of the schedule. Again, that's something that I'm learning to this day about scheduling meetings and things like that. If I'm trying to shoot a video during the day, there are certain times of the day that a meeting might come through on my calendar that will drive me nuts, because then it means, oh, I gotta go shoot a video, drive back, have an hour, hour and a half long Zoom call, and then drive back to wherever I was shooting. That is very, very wasted time, and time is precious even when you're not that busy. One thing that I think is really worth considering if you have a full-time job and you're doing real estate as a second full-time job is trying to leverage somebody else. So if this is making you enough money and maybe you haven't made any money in real estate, you should, in my opinion, consider hiring a remote employee or a virtual assistant or whatever you want to call it. But first you're going to have to know what your main lead generation is and what the biggest, time sucks that you have are. For me, very, very early on, what I did was I hired a remote employee who edits my videos. Literally before I had a single closing, I hired an editor. And it was because I could see the writing on the wall of there's all of this stuff that I have to do. I have to make videos, and then I had some clients who wanted to work with me who I had already had things under contract at that time. And I could see, okay, this is gonna be a really, really great opportunity, but I'm running out of time. And so if you have a job here and now a full-time job in real estate, to leverage some of this onto somebody else while still doing, by the way, full-time work over here. It's not so you can do 20 hours of work in a week, in my opinion. It's so you can continue to do 40 and your remote employee can do 40 as well, and you can become a super, super productive team. But obviously that is gonna require money. And one thing I just wanna harp on is don't be flippant with the idea of hiring a virtual assistant or a remote employee. These are people. If you are just like, let me try to hire this person for 1 week, and see how it does. They need probably more time than that to get comfortable in their role. So commit to having them on your team for some good period of time. A lot of that is because they deserve to be treated well, but some of it is because you deserve to give them some time to help you best. And I think the reality is, a huge majority of people, if you've gone through some interviewing and found somebody who seems to be competent, seems to be talented, and then they just aren't quite, doing what you want, there's probably a 95% chance that that is on you. And that's coming from somebody who has let go of certain employees and fully known, this is my fault. This is because I don't have the time to commit to this person to get them to do a good job. But you also have to do the due diligence up front and make sure that these people are competent, are talented, are capable of what they say they're capable of. But there's so much talent out there, and you just have to do the legwork to find the talent to help you do whatever it is that you want to do. Next up, I want you to set a goal for yourself, and you can do it over different periods of time, right? I personally believe it shouldn't necessarily be like a dollar amount that you're trying to make, although those can be helpful, especially I think if they seem wild and difficult to attain. I think those are kind of fun. But personally, I believe that creating a goal based on number of clients helped, number of people helped. It's actually a more effective way to then measure what you're doing, your output versus your input. Because at the end of the day, as a newer agent, you have some control over the price points of what buyers and sellers are willing to use you for, but your control over that ultimately is very low. So if you focus eyes on the prize, number of people helped, and it could be number of closings, I think that's cool. In the first 90 days, how many people have reached out to you and just like tried to get you to help them in some kind of way as it relates to real estate? You can actually go to my original channel, To the Twin Cities. It's a channel that is still rocking today, and I think my second or third video ever was something that I call the 90-day challenge. In retrospect, it doesn't fit the brand of that channel like at all, but it was a fun video to make, and it really, I don't know, set a fire underneath me because I had put these things out into the world. It wasn't just on my YouTube channel, it was on social media as well, and I set some pretty high goals that felt a little bit difficult to attain, felt a little bit lofty, but I actually surpassed them. And then I just had so much momentum after 90 days, like an undeniable amount of momentum. And in my opinion, a lot of real estate is just about momentum. So focus on helping more people, right? Getting to whatever they're trying to get to. And then I would say if you have a closing goal, which again is a good thing to set, whether that's a 6-month closing goal, a 1-year closing goal, or just a this many closings before I quit this job and go full time into real estate. I set goals like multiple times a year across a bunch of different concepts. I do smaller targets, which are kind of measurable along the way things, and then goals, which are maybe like a little bit more big picture. If I hit all of my targets, I will accomplish my goal. And then I have bigger picture mission and vision things, right, related to my company. But then I do another thing that I call dream big. I try to do it once a year at the very least. It's really big pie in the sky stuff, like what would my life look like if I just had complete control, if money was no object, if I could do whatever I want, what would my life look like? And so maybe I'll do another video on that, on like how I think about it, what I work through for the dream big. But set those goals, make really out there goals, but then also make measurable targets. 90 days, 6 months, and then maybe I will go full time when I hit this many closings in a year, right? Because also, by the way, if you were like, once I hit 20 closings, I'm gonna go full time. If you're in real estate for 5 years and you hit your 20th closing, you're probably not ready to go full time. You're averaging about 4 a year. That's probably not enough to go full time. I guess unless you're in a very, very expensive market, but then cost of living there will be very expensive as well. Last thought, I would consider 2 things. One of which would be having a mentor of some sort. It could be a brokerage if you're at a boutique brokerage and the broker is like very hands-on. It could be another agent who already is full-time. I think a lot of brokerages have things like that. My first broker did. That was very helpful when it came to the nitty-gritty contract stuff, but I was very much a lone wolf when it came to actually finding clients. And actually the internet was extremely helpful to me in trying to figure out how to acquire new clients. But I would recommend in one way or another to surround yourself with people who are successful. Not every brokerage is going to have very, very successful agents. That's one of the reasons that I joined the brokerage that I did after being at another one for like 3 years. I'm at Real Broker now. There are very absolute killers in real estate at Real Broker. And that was one of the things that I just kind of wanted to have some access to people who were, you know, crushing it on a level that I would really love to get to. But sometimes that's just a single agent who you know, who you're friends with, who's crushing it. Sometimes that's your brokerage. Sometimes that's your team leader, right? Which, by the way, maybe consider joining a team. Maybe consider joining a team because they have that support and they have that like a culture, or maybe they have systems in place where you can just kind of plug into what they're doing. Those things can be helpful. It all depends on how you want to create your own business. Or again, it could be the internet. It could be channels like this where all we're trying to do is help people crush it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.